Valorant's civil war is a story as old as YouTube itself, a tale of what some will call cringe content versus edgy commentary. During Valorant's peak, I watched some of these creators a lot, so it was odd to see them at each other's throat for a pretty long time. My consumption of each of them has drastically diminished now for different reasons, but today we'll talk about how Valorant's community on YouTube fractured and basically never recovered. For the first battle, we'll talk about Jollz, and I think Menmaro here is a good place to start. He made exactly one video on Jollz. He basically attacked him on multiple things, but the main 2 points is his smurfing content and coaching. Jollz isn't the only person in the Valorant community to do these marathon streams as well as YouTube videos of Iron to Radiant or even Immortal. And honestly, I don't really blame creators. Valorant drip feeds their content, and content is king in the year 2025. Actually, it's been king since 2020 if we're keeping it a buck. And one of the challenging things as a gaming creator is that you need to upload multiple times a week if you want to do this as a living. Yeah, there are exceptions of people who can just drop once a month and get 1 million+ views, but they're the exception for the reason, right? As someone who's been doing Valorant YouTube for a while and gets north of like 45% retention rate on his videos, I will tell you that you need a bare minimum of like 200k views per week to even come close to living full-time off of that. And even living off of that is pretty bad, like, right? Because 200k views basically means you're slightly above the poverty line. And Valorant isn't the only game where individuals do these speed runs. You know, almost every popular game has a lot of people doing them, and they're sometimes the best content. Like me personally, I used to like watching them, but the problem is that those titles have other game modes and things that people can really enjoy about the game. So rank isn't really that big of a deal to the vast majority. However, in Valorant's case, the majority of the player base plays rank, so they take this experience a lot more seriously than other titles. I've done polls in the past, and each of them basically say the same thing. If Valorant removed rank, the majority of people would not be playing this game. And smurfing can really impact one's enjoyability of rank, which is why smurfing and anti-smurfing sentiments is so large in this title versus other ones. The second point that Menmaro points out is that Jollz charged $175, which I will agree is crazy and probably not worth the price. I think Woohoojin used to be the prime example of how to be a coach on Valorant, where he would just VOD review people and upload it for free. Now, me personally, I never saw Jollz as a coach. He's a personality first, a coach second. He was probably just mainly doing it for views and possibly a little bit liked helping people. But the problem is, again, with Valorant content, it can get dry real fast. If you watch anywhere between 5 to 7 coaching videos, you've seen them all. All you really gotta do is find a good warm-up / training routine, VOD review here and there, and grind deathmatch anywhere from like 30 minutes to 2 hours. Yes, I know, crazy time frame, but it helps. As well as watching people who are in higher ranks than you and see what they do different, whether if it's like holding angles or the way they use their own utility. If you do those like 3 to 4 things, you should be able to get to like high plat, low diamond within 3 acts if you're really like dedicated to it. But to get back on track, Jollz charging $175 is wild, you know? I see it as more like paying for his time, since I guess VOD reviewing people can feel like a chore to him and he's not all that passionate for it, or at least there's other things that he would rather do. However, people are going to spend their money the way they do. It's not like Jollz just has a gun to their heads and telling them, hey, pay me $175 for this coaching or your family gets it, right? We can judge people on how they spend their money, but that's just how they spend their money. I've seen people drop over $500 for digital assets. Ridiculous, but hey, it's their money and their choice. However, I still respect Menmaro a lot for the way he looked at Jollz, and I think this video had the most impact on Jollz, because after this video like hit like I think over 100k, Jollz temporarily got rid of his coaching price and stopped smurfing, at least for a while. He ended up charging $175 for coaching again, and other people, even though it was temporarily, started to do smurfing content. Next, let's talk about PeepisAwesome's criticism of Jollz. I was mainly watching this guy because I was curious as to how he was getting so many views in Valorant and seeing if I can incorporate anything he does into my videos. Obviously, it didn't work. But I do think it would be funny if we called him CP Man, mainly because he has Club Penguin as his profile picture. Regardless, this individual made 8 videos on Jollz in 1 year. That is crazy. Like, CP Man over here is the perfect definition of like haters really be your biggest fans. Because like me personally, if I really dislike someone, I'm not gonna be watching that much of their content. And go to the extremes of making 8 freaking videos in 1 year. This is the perfect definition of having someone live rent-free in your head. But regardless, I will give CP Man here some credit because he was doing it for the love of the game. Some of these view numbers aren't even that big. Like, each of these videos were probably earning him less than $100. This one probably a little bit more, like maybe $250 or something. But Peep's criticism of Jollz was similar to Menmaro. He called out smurfing as well as coaching, but he went a little bit deeper, calling him old. In each video, if you're calling him 30, it kind of just like do something different. Also, CP Man here made a whole video about Jollz pointing one phrase, like "Me go Reina, me swing" or something like that.
Me go Reina, me swing. Flash?
And that's basically it. That's the entire joke. So yeah, leave in the comment section below. Did you guys roll of laughter? Were you guys dying of laughter? That was funny, bro. That was funny. I'm gonna be fully honest with you. That is not funny, bro. What are you on about? You're just saying that because Jollz is in the lobby. I think Jollz is actually clinically insane. Also, what is that long, peculiar, green, cylindrical device in the background, Jollz? You want to elaborate on what that is? It's kind of girthy and it's scary, Jollz. Please elaborate on that.
Not all jokes have to make you burst out laughing. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who watch funny content on YouTube don't literally roll on the floor because of the comedy. I'm sure most people just have like a blank stare on their phone when watching funny content. And honestly, like, the joke wasn't even that big of a deal. Like, I seen people do it with tens when he was playing Omen. Like, there were signs of people saying tens go Omen, 10 swings, or 10s kill. Like, it's just like a silly thing to say and do. It doesn't have to make you like literally roll on the floor or laugh. CP Man over here also criticized the fact that Jollz used to be a NASA engineer and he quit that job to be a content creator, which on the face of it, not that big of a deal. If anything, I think we as a society like the idea of people not slaving away their life and following their dreams. And it's really cool when they actually succeed at following their dreams. However, I will give CP Man some credit here. He points out that Jollz made an OF.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jollz started an OnlyFans. At 10,000 subs, he's dropping an OnlyFans. Guess what happened? He dropped an OnlyFans. He actually did it. I did have to vouch real quick. I went on his pillar. Oh no. Good morning, everyone. Did a Venom cosplay set the other day that I think you guys would love. DM me for it. No.
Which is kind of sad when you juxtapose the fact that this individual used to work for NASA and he went all the way to making an OF content. For me, at this time when this video came out, I was already barely watching Jollz as is. After this happened, I decided to just cut complete ties off of Jollz because I just don't respect any type of OF creator out there. And again, going from someone who used to work for NASA to creating the OF is really sad and like really a testament to like how messed up our society is. We have like girls who are coming out of high school saying that they no longer want to be freaking doctors and engineers. They're trying to be OF content creators because they see so many other people make a lot of money off of it. And they don't know that the vast majority of people who make an OF kind of don't succeed, and they kind of like ruin their life in the process too. Next, we have Westjett, who made about like 7 videos on Jollz, some on his main account and some on his second. Even though he made less videos on Jollz, I think it were more impactful seeing how he got more views than CP Man. Basically, Westjett was doing and saying the same thing as Peep. Right? And low-key, you can kind of like blame CP Man over here for getting Westjett into this like whole edgy commentary against other creators, right? And don't get me wrong, Westjett was involved in some drama here and there with pro players, but he actually started to increase his commentary on individuals after CP Man here was gaining like some traction. So all the Westjett fans who likes his drama era or haters who dislike it, you can point to this individual for being the inspiration for it. So now let's look at Jollz's rebuttal, right? At times he will claim that he's not a family-friendly channel, which I guess is fair, but some of your thumbnails might say different. He also defends his maid outfits and like scandalous cosplays, which chances are your favorite creator has probably done a maid cosplay as well. He made rebuttals for both CP Man and Westjett. I'm not too sure if he made a rebuttal towards Menmaro, but he does call out like stark hypocrisy here and there. The problem is though, is like when you're trying to win a moral argument on YouTube versus like edgy commentary individuals, it's just not gonna work because his audience isn't there for morality. They're just there to be entertained. At the end of the day, Jollz's channel is pretty much a shell of its former glory. At one point, you could say all of this was like smaller creators punching up, but it slowly became them punching down. At one point in time when I noticed Jollz wasn't even making 200k views per week, I knew this man was stressing out probably. And that's probably why he felt desperate enough to make an OF. And at the end of the day, I can't respect that as a decision. You're better off just getting, trigger warning, a part-time job rather than a full-time one. Like, it could just be something you do like 20 hours a week to just make ends meet before having to think, oh, I have to sell my body online. That is wild to me. And if anything, getting that trigger warning part-time job will motivate you to do better content. Like, if you're someone who was able to make it on top before, you could do it again. You just need motivation, and nothing's more motivating than working, trigger warning, a job that you hate. That will light a fire under your butt to do better. Trust. And it's kind of sad to watch someone who chases their dreams, achieves it, and then just lose it all. Like, I personally won't celebrate the downfall of someone whose only crime is cringe. That's hella weird. Like, there's a bunch of other people on this platform who are more deserving of intense criticism. And I do think some blame could be placed on these like edgy commentary / hate videos, but it's mainly the fault of the creator for sticking with Valorant for so long and not pivoting soon enough. Especially Jollz. Like, ever since, I feel like he lost a lot of like people's backings after he made that OF page and started to like interact with like adult content creators too. In the case of Jollz, the edgy commentary videos were able to outlast his channel. According to YouTube, edgy commentary is better than most of Valorant's content. Like, the freaking face of the game, Tense, gets less views on his long form videos than Westjett on his second channel. Let that sink in. Like, Valorant's gameplay does horrible on YouTube if you want to make a living off of it. It's better on Twitch and short form content, but those avenues is a lot harder to make a living off. Next, before we talk about Schrodinger Lee, I want to make this clear that this isn't really like a hit piece on any creators, right? This is just my POV of watching big content creators go at it for a prolonged time because it was really fascinating to see. I've been a part of other gaming communities and I've never seen anything like this. Yes, there may be some creators who have beef with each other, but it doesn't last longer than a year, maybe a month or two. But for there to be like dragged out drama and beef around content creators is very interesting to watch. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that Valorant is a horrible game for content creation. What happens when people get bored? They gravitate to other things, and that other thing was drama. Now for Schrodinger Lee, I didn't really watch his content at all. Like, I never really seeked out to watch it. It usually just appears on my feed whenever I'm doom scrolling. Basically everything I know about this man has been against my will. He kind of popularized the whole like deep voice, pet names, and dialogue, which blew up his channel at the time. And unfortunately, just like Jollz, he has dabbled with like adult themes and creators. The whole like pipeline of like these cringe content creators to adult content is kind of weird, right? However, unlike Jollz, Schrodinger Lee is still kind of relevant, seeing how he was able to jump ship on the Valorant train and became more of a variety creator, which is still a very hard thing to do. And with Schrodinger Lee, I would say the prime targets wasn't just Westjett and CP Man over here, but Steven Lin too. And I think when Steven Lin and Schrodinger Lee got into this like whole Valorant civil war is when we started to see a little bit of like character growth of everybody in the community to some extent. Before all of this, I didn't really watch a lot of Steven Lin content, but it looks like he was a League player who made comedy videos / reaction / commentary topics. And I'm not gonna lie, looking at some of his videos now, I am so mad at the YouTube algorithm for recommending me CP Man's content over Steven Lin's. This guy is actually hilarious. Like, you can tell he puts in so much more work.
The clients I've had on ePal have been an absolute joy. However, a lot of you might be thinking that the people who order ePals are usually creeps, but honestly, that's simply not the case. Surprisingly, a large majority—
and it was just purely for entertainment too, at least I think for the most part. He would make fun of like these Valorant TikTokers and shorts creators for always making these like cheesy pickup lines and not being authentic, which is, I guess, somewhat fair. He also points out from time to time how like this little e-dater culture in Valorant kind of distracts from the game, which is somewhat true. But as someone who's been playing Valorant for like 3 or 4 years now, I rarely ever seen couples in my ranked games, right? Maybe it happens in lower ranks like Iron or Silver, but in rank specifically, I don't have too many couples ruining my games. Maybe like once every act. If anything, most of them are in like unrated, Swift, or quick play. And also, this isn't just a Valorant problem either. I've seen like e-dater couples in freaking Marvel Rivals and Apex too. The interesting thing with Steven Lin is the fact that like him and Schrodinger Lee got into like arguments. I actually did like a whole Discord call, And Schrodinger Lee pretty much just mollywopped Stephen Lin when it came to like this conversation. You can easily tell that Schrodinger Lee was a lot more mature with his undertaking and made some good points. Now, I did say earlier that this beef kind of gave like character development for everyone involved. And one of those individuals was CP Man over here. He was used to making fun of people like Schrodinger Lee and Darling Neon, whatever their name is. But ever since Schrodinger Lee, oh my goodness, I don't know why that was so hard to say. But ever since Lee came out and saying that he's been getting like a lot of harassment emails and comments, I think that made people realize, hey, maybe I should chill with all this hate content that I'm creating, which both CP Man and Westjett did for a while. But it's kind of hard to switch up content, but instead they just made multiple disclaimers on each of their videos saying, hey, chill with sending hate towards people, you're cringe for that, which is true. It's good that they send that disclaimer out in all their videos. Cooler, it would be better if they would probably chill on individuals and stop making videos on them like multiple times in a month. Like, I feel like that's kind of crazy. Regardless, I did say that this was a good healing time for the Valorant community because CP Man and even like Darling Neon, who's another like quote unquote cringe content creator, actually made a collab together, you know, which I'm pretty sure no one really saw that coming. In the case of Westjett, he pretty much did the same thing as CP Man. And honestly, at the end of the day, what's cringe for one person might not be cringe for another, you know? In general, you shouldn't really be harassing or sending harm to someone as long as they're not harming anyone else in the process, like physically or mentally, you know? I feel like just tell the platform to stop recommending you this kind of content. It's that easy. Lastly, I want to talk about AverageJonas, which Westjett has made like over 5 videos on him, and CP Man made about like 3 or so. This was definitely a more personal grudge match between Westjett. If anything, CP Man here was more like a clone. But when it came to like the videos that they would make on AverageJonas, it was very similar to what they were doing with Jollz, like both making fun of his age, which again, the first time, maybe it's kind of funny, but doing it like 2, 3, or even 4 times in a row, it gets boring and lame. Another thing that they disliked was the fact that his content was like shilling out for Valorant skins. It becomes really apparent that both these individuals find him cringe for supporting Riot Games in general. And that's a crime in the eyes of the edgy community. And it kind of became very apparent that the people that Westjett and CP Man were like making videos on were people who made Valorant seem like a good product. If anything, you could say that they probably want to see Valorant as a whole officially shut down. I don't know if they had like a bad stretch of ranked games, or maybe they were jealous of these larger content creators, but it's like they're doing everything in their powers to destroy this game. One thing that I do find pretty cringe from not only Westjett and CP Man, but like the community as a whole, is when people get their loved ones involved. Like, I feel like that's one thing that we as a society should chill on, you know? Because like everybody was making fun of AverageJonas for this picture, basically saying that it was weird that he was hugging another female Valorant creator over his own girlfriend. Even though I'm fully aware that this whole video is kind of like my own parasocial video detailing the Valorant civil war that I dub, I feel like it's really taboo to bring in people's loved ones in drama. Like, I feel like that should be the last thing that we do, right? Because that really has messed up complications for people's personal life. Again, it's one thing if someone is like calling out harm against somebody. All this hate that individuals like AverageJonas gets is because people think they're cringe. That is insane. Like, potentially breaking up relationships because someone makes cringe content is wild. And of course, I don't blame AverageJonas at all. He will clap back on Westjett, which in turn would just be another opportunity for Westjett to make rent money and in turn dunk on AverageJonas. You legitimately can't win against these individuals. Like, this man could come out and say that he hates the LGBTQ, and that will probably grow his fan base in turn, since YouTube is becoming more and more right-wing every year since like 2020 or whatever. And once again, like a few other quote-unquote cringe creators, AverageJonas' channel would diminish and be a shell of its former glory due to Valorant barely coming out with content and their channel dying in the process. Now, some blame could be thrown at the fact that how he handled this beef, but most of it is because he stuck with Valorant for so long. And he did finally jump ship to Deadlock, but who knows when that game will actually come out. And honestly, jumping from one competitive game that's probably going to have similar problems to Valorant isn't the smartest idea in my opinion. But when Deadlock finally does come out, I guess that might like bump his channel for a while, and I just hope that he learns from his mistakes with Valorant and thinks about like transitioning into like variety content. Once you have like a large fan base of people who watch you for you, it's a good idea to like try to do variety content, because sticking with one game forever could work, but not every game is going to be Fortnite. Now, there's other people like Willius, Ethos, and even Shazam, which all had similar paths and downfalls, but I didn't really include them in this because, yeah, some of them were cringe, but like it was a little different, and this, I feel like this video is long enough. But if you guys want to see like maybe a part 2 on that, I'm more than happy to make a video. Just like and subscribe in the process, so I know that you guys would actually want to see that. But till then, stay safe, be a KDA warrior, and I'll see you guys later.